So let's talk about one of my favorite aspects of generally electronic music, and that's sidechaining. And I'm going to share with you a few tips that have really helped me out for general sidechain routing. And if you don't know what sidechaining is, it's essentially when you are using a compressor to listen to the input of a different track to control the output level of the track that you have the compressor on. And it makes a lot more sense once you kind of get into it a little bit, but it's essentially that pumping to the kick sound that everybody loves, including myself. But when I first started, I used to put a compressor on every single individual track. So like, let's say we had this track that we wanted to sidechain, this synth track. I used to put a compressor on a track like this, and then I would click this arrow and I would click sidechain, and then I'd have to go to audio from kick, and then I'd have to adjust all the controls like this. But the problem with this is that the more and more tracks that you have, the more compressors you have to add. And if you want to change the release time, so you want to make it like more or less pumpy, you have to do it on every single individual track, which is really inefficient and it's a pain. So there are other ways to do it. And my preferred way is to use a return track and actually more than one return track to give you some options for sidechaining, but all at the same time. So what I have set up is I have two tracks at the very end of my returns. And one of them is called short sidechain, and one of them is called long sidechain. And they're just a compressor with the sidechain input turned on, and they're already listening to the kick track. And the advantage to this is that using a return track like this means that I can change this synth here that is not currently being sidechained. I can change it to sends only. So it's not sending to the master bus directly. It's going to just any one of these sends. So currently it's not being sent anywhere. So if I want to send it to my short sidechain, I need to send it to G, which is the second to last send, right? And now it's going to go to short SC. So if I pull up short SC, now it's sidechaining. So what I can do is anything that I want sidechain, I can just increase that send. Go to sends only, increase the send, and have it be going to that return track. I also have a long sidechain because sometimes you want it to be really quick and sometimes you want it to be really long. So in this case, I kind of want this to be longer. So I have these different, this long sidechain compressor is set at 120 milliseconds and the short one is set at 30. So, 4 times as long for the longer sidechain amount. And this is useful because if I really want it to pump, then I can just send it to the long one, right? Like this. So it gives you lots of flexibility. For something like vocals, you might want to use the short sidechaining. And for something longer like these synths or the bass, or depending on the genre that you're in, but in this one in particular, there's a lot of sidechaining, and it's a big part of the overall sound and something that you really want to dial it in. So I like to have more than one option, and sometimes even 3 options, just to make things easier depending on what I'm working on. So that's an easy way to route. But one other tip I want to give you too is that most people sidechain to the kick itself, which is fine. You can totally do that. But what I prefer to do instead of that is to have another track on my kick track. So in this case, we're using the kick VST, but also I like to have another sampler on the kick track playing at the same time, but you can see that it's muted, right? So I'm actually going to color this white so it's different. You can see that it's muted. So that's on purpose because I have this rim shot that's playing at the same time as every single kick hit. So if I solo the kick and I play this, you can hear this rim shot going. That's always going in the background, but I have it muted and I have it named SC. So if I come over to my short sidechain and I go to my input menu and I click kick, and then I go to the sub menu for it's asking you which track on your kick track do you want to actually listen to. And instead of listening to the kick, I listen to that little rim shot. And the advantage to this is that I can get a much tighter response from the sidechain than I would be able to with the kick alone. So let's demonstrate that, right? So if I go and I just listen to the kick, and we're on short sidechain, if I can say that, right? So let's listen to the pumping here. So as fast as it can possibly go, it still has to wait for that kick, the entire transient of the kick, to finish before it can pull back and return to its original level, right? But if we go to the sidechain now, we can be much tighter, or we can be much longer. So it gives you way more flexibility, because you have that minimum window that you can actually accomplish, or you can do the longer window as well, which you could only do with the kick. So that's how I like to work, and it just gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how tightly you want to have that side chaining, because it can make a big difference, especially with something like vocals. So yeah, you can leave the vocals without any side chaining, but you can also have them be a really, really tight side chain, and it still helps things lock together, and you can still kind of fulfill the requirements of the genre that you're working in without having it be too overbearing.